Yo, what is going on? PartTimerZack here. In today's video, we're going to be talking about Fallen Star. More importantly, I wanted to talk about my review of the overall event and just talk about some highs and lows essentially of the event and what I really feel like the game did really well and what it kind of gave us overall. So with the event closing in the next 5 days, I thought this would be kind of a good time as things are kind of wrapping down and going into the next event to kind of talk about this. So I will have a notepad up here to kind of reference and kind of go through, because I did have it listed, but it's not in any particular order. It's not like something ranks above the other one. It's just kind of make sure that I'm staying on topic. So first and foremost, I wanted to say that I thought the quality of life improvements were really well done. I do like the fact that the memories got changed to not only being able to quick unequipped essentially, but you're able to do memory sets. I think this is such a huge lifesaver, especially for a lot of people. They use the same units for Tower of Babel or Warzone or Pain Cage, whatever it is. You are able to kind of jump in here and pick your memories. Now, one thing I do have kind of a knock against essentially is the lock-on. For the life of me, I cannot get it to work the way that I feel like it's intended. However, they will be improving on that on the internal engine. So I guess we'll kind of have to go back and evaluate it at that point in time. But the current rendition of it is just something that I can't really use. And I've just kind of been using the regular lock-on because I don't really find the point of being able to click, an area that nobody's in and then be able to switch between targets. It just messes with me, and I would rather it just be a button, which is essentially what they do later on. Now, talking about the levels, I do feel like they were harder. In my opinion, I really feel like this one really gave us a little bit more of an amp. When it came to Frozen Darkness, I really felt that I was just kind of grinding through things, and I didn't really feel like I had too much challenge. As I started progressing through this, honestly, it did kind of start to feel like that, especially towards the later part as I was starting to get a lot of my units built up. But the fact is, whenever you jump into something like this, QL7, it is actually pretty hard. For the example, anyway, it does cost 120 stamina, so I'm not sure how many of you guys actually went in here and did it, because like I said, it does cost quite a bit, but it is kind of hard. There were times that I had to reset because I made a mistake and I was like, dang it, I need to go back because I ended up dying or I wasn't able to complete the mission. But more often than not, especially towards the end part of it, I was able to jump in here and be able to play. It was just a little bit more challenging than something like Frozen Darkness, which brings me into my other point that's a little bit linked to this. I like the fact that we had a little bit more diversity with this one. If you guys wanted to jump in and do the 120, maybe you had kind of a fast day, you didn't have a lot of time to jump out of the game, you can kind of go in here and burn your stamina. Now, obviously, it wasn't the most optimal thing. I think the most optimal are probably going to be these two, because if you kind of break them down over the 100 or the 160 that you get essentially for the 30, you do get a lot more bang for your buck essentially. But if you had kind of a day and you're like, I really don't have a lot of time to jump in here, there was an option here to use some of these other ones to kind of whittle down that stamina, and it gave you a little bit more choice. On the other side of that as well, I don't feel like we had to do with these two. You could also do the kind of beginner ones and still get kind of a good amount of currency if you're grinding for the shop. So I think it was kind of a nice thing to see a little bit more diversity, whereas on Frozen Darkness, it really just felt like I was doing the one mission over and over and over again, and I didn't really have much diversity, especially if I had like a time constraint kind of day. It really just felt like I had to kind of jump on there no matter what my day was looking like and grind out the way that it kind of wanted me to do it. The next topic is going to be the shop. I really feel like this was nice in some ways, but also kind of a burden in others. So the fact that we had a free skin, super cool. I really hope that they do something like that in the future, or the fact that, usually we get our free A rank here. That is something that I really hope that they keep doing. I will say that it was a little harder to be able to get all your memories and kind of stock up on the skin. That's just kind of my personal preference. Again, I'm not telling them to change that. I really do like the fact that they gave us a free skin. I'm not complaining about that any means. I'm just saying it's a little bit harder in the shop than it was for Frozen Darkness, because you really only had to worry about your memories and then kind of scooping up some of these other resources and stuff like that. But I really do feel like there was more than enough time. And honestly, I can't complain too much about the structure of these shops, because I do think that they're fair, especially whenever you're jumping in and grinding all the time. That some of the prices, it is kind of weird though that they fluctuate in price depending on the event. I don't necessarily know why that is, because sometimes you get more currency from a stage or something like that than you would have in Frozen Darkness, and then all of a sudden it corresponds like that in the shop. I don't know, it doesn't make too much sense why they don't just kind of keep it similar. Maybe they're just trying to give you kind of a different thing to do and a little bit different calculations, I suppose, to kind of go forward. The next thing is going to be the Tower of Babel. I think this was a great addition to the game. I really think that a lot of people, even if they were obviously going for the missions, which I still need to do, grab a couple of these before the end of my 5 days, but even if you weren't just doing it for the fact of these rewards, I feel like a lot of people are actually just putting time and effort into this just to see how high they could get. I know a lot of people are competitive, and unfortunately, Punishing Grey Raven isn't a PvE or PvP game, but it is nice to have something like this where you can kind of task yourself, or at least go against yourself a little bit to get the higher score, to get a little bit higher of a level, and kind of challenge yourself based on what kind of stuff you want to pick, and just kind of seeing how good your units are and kind of giving them a little bit of a real test essentially to see how well they're going to be doing for future events and stuff like that. So I really think that Tower of Babel is just a great thing to kind of add, and I'm super excited to kind of see where it goes from here. I also think that Tower of Babel did a really good job of giving everybody an idea that, we need a little bit more units. We have to work on our units a little bit more. We can't just hyper focus a certain unit. Like, for example, I have my alpha, but I am kind of starting to broaden my range when it comes to my other units, because there are other game modes and stuff like that that start to kind of hinder on the fact that you can only have so many teams, and you have to kind of work in a way that makes it a little bit more strategic when you're using your units. You can't just kind of dig it all into alpha, for example, and just be fine. You're going to have to kind of work on getting a little bit more diverse teams, which I really kind of like, because it gives you an idea that all the characters are playable in some way or another, and building into those teams and giving people a little bit of an interest of like other units, essentially, because you can get hyper focused on one specific unit, especially when it comes to like the way they look or the way they play. A lot of people just really like that, but they don't really take a lot of time to look at some other characters that they may like in the future. So the next point I wanted to make is essentially how they gave the A ranks for this kind of patch for free. Essentially, you could go in here and you can grind for it. I like that this was a little bit more of a grindable currency. The fact that you could go in here and essentially get a lot of different resources and a lot of different things. I know a lot of people wanted Watanabe, which is a really cool thing that they gave us. Also giving us the free kind of version to get the interlude for Ayla. So normally whenever you have this, you have to have the character to grind the interlude, but nice enough that they kind of gave us an option to grind Ayla if you wanted her for free and you didn't really want to go for her A rank, which is another point I really wanted to make, is the fact that they added this. I know a lot of people are saving their BC and they don't really want to spend it, but the nice thing is being able to kind of jump in here, especially if you're kind of grinding on Watanabe a little bit more, or maybe you have like your A-Liv or whatever, you're trying to get a little bit higher, you're able to jump in here for a little bit of currency and get an 80%. Obviously, it's not 100%, so you may lose it, which would kind of suck a little bit, but honestly, it's a little bit better in the whole grand scheme of things, having this kind of choice than not having it at all. And plus, you can use your blue cards if you are saving those from the bounties and stuff like that. I just think it gives a little bit more of a diversity when it comes to the basic gacha, when it comes to the standard banner, and not having to worry too much about jumping on these kind of exclusive banners, even though they do help you out a little bit along the way. So the last little part here, and probably what I feel like is the biggest zonk, is the fact that Black Flash was more of a filler, I would say. It was kind of just one of those things where you ran through, got your rewards. Other than that, it wasn't really worth grabbing for. I would really like to see, instead of 3-star weapons, maybe even 4-star weapons, or having like, a 0.% chance or whatever for like a 5-star weapon would be kind of cool to be able to jump in here and waste a little bit of stamina, because a lot of people are just going to be like one and done it, and then they're going to go back to their daily grind and they're not going to care too much about something like Black Flash. So I really felt that it was kind of a filler thing. I understand that they did it just to give you a little bit more diversity, a little bit more to kind of jump onto when it came to the rewards, and a little bit of a refresher because it came about, a little bit into the actual thing. It wasn't like, tied in essentially when everything else launched. It was a couple days after, so it gave you a little bit of diversity, I feel like, but they could have definitely done a little bit more with it. Like I said, I really wish that they had something like a 4-star, maybe even a 5-star drop rate or something like that for just the event kind of going through it, so some of you guys can get some of your 5 stars built up, or even a % of a chance essentially to get that, or even get shards. Maybe that would be the route that they would need to go in. Overall, I feel like the event was done really well. I think the rewards were worth kind of the time and effort that you put into it. I still like the fact that they're giving us memories for each one of the characters, especially whenever you're grinding for them, because it can be kind of a headache to have to go through certain missions just to get a chance of a 6-star. So I do appreciate the fact that it's really free to play when it comes to getting A ranks, and especially getting some different memories and stuff like that for units down the line, and then just being able to grind out the different currency for, the cogs and weapon enhancers, all the kind of material that you're going to need. So I really do appreciate this game being like free to play essentially, and giving us a little bit more of an aspect, but I wanted to make the review because I know that stuff starts to kind of amp up as we go. So I would like to kind of start talking more and more about these kind of events and talking about how they're improving and how they're changing the game overall. So anyway, guys, make sure to like the video if you enjoy the content, and sub to the channel if you want to see some more Punishing Gray Raven. But anyway, guys, I will catch you in the next one. Have a good rest of your night, guys. Peace.